the guest house at Graceland, a resort just steps away from the legendary performer's iconic Memphis mansion, visited by some 600,000 fans each year.
In 2025, for the first time since Elvis Presley's death in 1977, the sealed attic of Graceland was finally opened, ending decades of silence surrounding the mansion's most mysterious space. While millions of fans had walked its halls, laid flowers by his grave, and admired the artifacts displayed in tribute to the king of rock and roll, one part of the estate remained untouched, hidden above the second floor like a time capsule. When archivists stepped through the attic door, they were met not with dust-covered storage, but with a room frozen in time. What they found inside went far beyond nostalgia. It was intimate, raw, and deeply human. Forgotten possessions, personal notes, private photographs, and unreleased music were all preserved as though Elvis had left them there himself. Some items were so personal and revealing that even seasoned professionals were visibly shaken. The attic didn't just hold memorabilia, it held moments, secrets, and a version of Elvis Presley the world had never seen. For decades, it had been speculated that the attic might contain clues about his final days, but no one was prepared for the emotional weight of what lay hidden just above the floor where he took his last breath. What was once considered off-limits out of respect was now a silent testimony, finally allowed to speak. Among the boxes and relics scattered across the attic, archivists stumbled upon items that transcended the typical bounds of memorabilia. Handwritten lyrics scrawled on old napkins, forgotten fan mail from decades past, and intimate letters written in Elvis's unmistakable handwriting painted a portrait far removed from the polished image of a global icon. But what stunned the team most was a simple, worn leather jacket tucked away in a corner. Inside its inner pocket was a folded note that read, "Wear this when you need to disappear." The message was eerie in its simplicity, suggesting that Elvis may have contemplated vanishing from the public eye. As they sifted through the boxes, it became clear that these weren't curated keepsakes for show. They were personal items preserved for private reflection. Unreleased photographs showed Elvis laughing candidly with loved ones, exhausted backstage, and in rare moments of solitude. These images contradicted the manufactured grandeur often associated with him, and instead revealed a man burdened by the spotlight. Every item found in the attic seemed to whisper a story of isolation, longing, and a quiet desperation to reclaim pieces of a life overtaken by fame. In that attic, archivists didn't just uncover Elvis the entertainer, they uncovered Elvis the man. Elvis Presley's death on August 16, 1977, sent shockwaves around the world. Initially declared a result of cardiac arrhythmia, the cause raised eyebrows as rumors and suspicions quickly spread. Fans and medical professionals alike were left uneasy, sensing that the official story didn't align with the known facts about his health and lifestyle. It wasn't long before the autopsy team unearthed overwhelming evidence pointing to long-term prescription drug abuse. However, in a surprising move, Dr. Jerry Francisco, who was not even part of the autopsy team, publicly announced that drugs had played no role in Elvis's death. His statement contradicted the findings and left the medical community stunned. Many believed that this denial was an attempt to protect Elvis's public image, shielding the world from the truth about the king's deteriorating health and addiction struggles. When the full toxicology report was eventually released, it painted a far more troubling picture. Elvis's body contained a cocktail of powerful substances: dilaudid, quaaludes, Percodan, Demerol, and codeine, at levels that far exceeded therapeutic use. This revelation shifted the narrative dramatically, leading fans to ask not just how Elvis died, but who enabled the spiral that led to such a tragic end. The story of his death was no longer simple. It was suspicious, layered, and deeply unsettling. Central to the controversy surrounding Elvis's death was Dr. George Nick Nichopoulos, famously known as Dr. Nick, who served as Presley's personal physician during the final years of his life. Between 1975 and 1977, Dr. Nick wrote thousands of prescriptions for Elvis, totaling more than 8,000 doses of controlled substances, including opioids, amphetamines, and sedatives. When confronted with this staggering number, Dr. Nick didn't deny it. Instead, he claimed he was practicing harm reduction, asserting that Elvis was already addicted, and that his goal was to keep him off the dangerous black market by supplying legal alternatives. Surprisingly, a jury accepted his explanation, and he was cleared of criminal responsibility. But the scrutiny didn't end there. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, Dr. Nick faced repeated accusations of overprescribing not just to Elvis, but to other high-profile clients like Jerry Lee Lewis. In '95, after years of mounting evidence, the Tennessee Board of Medical Examiners permanently revoked his license, citing a consistent pattern of reckless medical practice. Dr. Nick's role in Elvis's decline became a symbol of a larger systemic failure: how fame, power, and enablers can create a dangerous ecosystem around celebrities, one where accountability often comes too late. His actions, whether protective or destructive, remain a dark footnote in Elvis's legacy. 5. In 2020, the narrative around Elvis Presley's death took a dramatic turn with the release of Sally A. Hodell's groundbreaking book, Destined to Die Young. In it, Hodell presented a controversial but meticulously researched argument that Elvis didn't die because of addiction, but because of a cluster of chronic and hereditary health conditions that had plagued him throughout his life. According to Hodell, Elvis suffered from multiple undiagnosed ailments, including autoimmune disorders and genetic heart defects, which were masked by his heavy reliance on prescription medication. Far from being a man recklessly abusing drugs, she portrayed him as someone trying to function, perform, and survive despite intense physical pain. Her theory reframed the public perception of Elvis's final years, not as a slow-motion crash fueled by excess, but as a desperate battle for normalcy in a body that was failing him. If her claims hold weight, they raise critical questions about what the Presley family knew at the time and whether the sealed attic contained evidence of a truth too painful or complex to share. The idea that Elvis was misunderstood for decades has prompted a reevaluation of his legacy and forced fans to confront a more compassionate, if no less tragic, version of the man behind the myth. Chapter 6. The days following Elvis Presley's death were marked by public grief on a monumental scale, with nearly 100,000 fans descending upon Graceland to mourn their fallen icon. His body, dressed in a white suit and blue shirt, was laid in state, offering fans a final glimpse of the man who had shaped the soundtrack of a generation. The funeral procession on August 18, 1977, featured 17 white Cadillacs moving slowly through Memphis, a visual tribute to royalty of another kind: rock and roll royalty. Mourners included not only close family members like Priscilla, Lisa Marie, and Vernon Presley, but also celebrities such as James Brown, Sammy Davis Jr., and Caroline Kennedy. Yet, just 2 days after the ceremony, the Presley family faced a chilling violation. A group of men attempted to steal Elvis's coffin in what appeared to be a bizarre ransom plot. Though the plan was thwarted and the perpetrators were merely charged with trespassing, the implications were grave. It became clear that not even in death was Elvis safe from exploitation. Fearing future attempts, Vernon Presley quietly had Elvis and his mother Gladys' remains moved and reburied within the meditation garden at Graceland, an area Elvis had personally designed as a place of peace. The estate tightened security, sealed off parts of the house, and permanently locked the attic, further feeding speculation about what might have been hidden away just above the place where Elvis's life had come to an end. 7. In 1957, a 22-year-old Elvis Presley purchased Graceland for $102,500, a staggering sum at the time, but one he paid willingly for a place he would transform into both a sanctuary and a stage. Situated just outside Memphis, the mansion came with the name already intact, Graceland, and Elvis embraced it fully, never changing it, perhaps sensing its spiritual undertone. Over the years, he filled the estate with personal touches, from lush stables and barns to a pasture with horses, and even a pet chimpanzee named Scatter, who became notorious for pulling pranks on guests. In 1964, he created the Meditation Garden, a quiet oasis filled with fountains, white columns, and flower beds where he would sit for hours reflecting on fame, fortune, and personal pain. After his death, that serene space became his final resting place, but the mansion itself was frozen in time. When Graceland opened to the public in 1982, most rooms were accessible, except for one, the second floor, where Elvis had died. That area was sealed off permanently out of respect and to protect the Presley family's privacy. Yet, more mysterious than the second floor was the attic above it, an area without public mention or photographic evidence, so tightly protected it began to feel almost mythical. Visitors, historians, and even presidents were never allowed access. The attic became a ghostly presence within the home, one that sparked endless questions about what might lie above, untouched and deliberately hidden. In 2024, a legal storm threatened to bring Graceland's era as a public monument to a sudden and shocking end. A company known as Nosany Investments and Private Lending LLC claimed that Riley Keough, Elvis Presley's granddaughter and the trustee of the Promenade Trust that owns Graceland, had defaulted on a $3.8 million loan using the property as collateral. The company moved swiftly to auction off the estate, setting a date that sent shockwaves through Memphis and the global Elvis fan base. Riley responded with a forceful lawsuit, accusing the company of fraud and document forgery, and alleging that the entire transaction was part of an elaborate scheme to exploit her family's legacy. The situation escalated into a courtroom showdown, and just one day before the scheduled auction, a Tennessee judge intervened with a powerful ruling. He blocked the sale, calling Graceland a unique and irreplaceable cultural asset, and warning that its loss would cause irreparable harm to the public. Curiously, representatives from neither Nosany nor Riley's legal team appeared at the hearing, leaving observers with more questions than answers. Though the ruling ensured that Graceland remained in the Presley family's hands, the ordeal exposed a chilling possibility. If the court hadn't stepped in, a private entity could have claimed ownership of the estate and potentially accessed the attic. What secrets might have been unveiled had outsiders broken the seal on the most private corner of Elvis's world? When archivists finally entered the attic in 2025, the room they stepped into was not a simple storage space, but a frozen tableau of a life paused. Lining the dusty walls were boxes stacked high, their contents undisturbed since the day Elvis died. Inside were handwritten song lyrics penned on fast food napkins, rehearsal notes, childhood trinkets, and hundreds of unopened fan letters dating back to the 1970s. Most stunning of all was a small, unmarked box labeled Practice Sessions 1976. Inside were reel-to-reel tapes containing previously unheard recordings of Elvis in his rawest form. One haunting version of Unchained Melody, stripped of any background vocals or instruments, featured Elvis alone, his voice trembling, cracked, and saturated with emotion. It was more than a rehearsal. It was a confession in sound, a window into his soul in the final months of his life. The attic also contained letters from fans begging him to take a break for his health, their words possibly unread and tragically unheeded. These weren't just forgotten items. They were cries, echoes, and remnants of a life under crushing pressure. The tapes and letters revealed a man teetering between artistic genius and emotional collapse, and they forced a reckoning with the uncomfortable truth that even at his most adored, Elvis was profoundly alone. The attic hadn't just stored history, it had preserved the last whispers of a man crying out from the shadows. Tucked among the glitz and performance relics in the attic were the most human artifacts of all. Simple, worn objects that revealed the boy who existed before the king. A tattered teddy bear from his childhood in Tupelo sat beside a Bible given to him by his mother, Gladys. Its pages yellowed, dog-eared, and underlined with notes of personal meaning. His high school yearbook was filled with scrawled signatures, jokes from classmates, and innocent notes from a time before his name became legend. These objects weren't collected for show. They were kept for comfort, memory, and perhaps a sense of grounding. Lisa Marie Presley once mentioned that she would rummage through these boxes whenever she felt overwhelmed, suggesting that the attic served as a quiet sanctuary, a place where the weight of the world's expectations didn't reach. As archivists uncovered these pieces, the myth of Elvis Presley began to dissolve, revealing a more fragile, complex human being. And as if echoing from beyond, the long-running conspiracy theories resurfaced. Stories of Elvis faking his death, of sightings in Michigan, or as preacher Bob Joyce. Though largely dismissed, these tales persisted, fueled in part by the profound discomfort people felt in accepting that the king could fall so far, so fast. But now, with the attic opened and the veil partially lifted, fans are left not with certainty, but with something deeper, a final, unfiltered connection to the soul of a man they thought they already knew. And maybe, just maybe, that's the truest ending his story could ever have.